Today on CityCast Boise. Happy Friday. Our Hey Boise newsletter editor, Blake Hunter, is joining me to break down the biggest local stories, from how the Albertsons-Kroger merger could impact your wallet to how the Wapiti fire has exploded and what that could mean for your holiday plans. Plus, the details on Idaho's very first trans march. It's Friday, August 30th. I'm Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about. Blake, I definitely want to get your take on the Kroger-Albertsons merger. I am seeing this absolutely everywhere. So I want to know, what have you seen about it? And then what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so like you said, national outlets are paying a lot of attention to this, which makes sense. Kroger and Albertsons, so Kroger owns Safeway and obviously the Kroger stores as well, and Fred Meyer, which is the main local one that people might know in Idaho. And then Albertsons is obviously huge and is Boise-based. So these are two huge supermarket chains. They've been trying to merge. They proposed their merger. It's been about 2 years now. And now the Federal Trade Commission is officially started their lawsuit against the merger this week. And it's kind of these two grocery giants have a bit of a gauntlet that they're running through late August through October, because there's the FTC lawsuit on the federal level, and then both Washington and Colorado, the states, have their own cases against the merger. So I don't know. To be honest, the way that the FTC has been talking and the way that states have been talking, it's not looking good for the merger. And I think that one good thing to keep in mind is, what does this actually mean for Boise? Obviously, it's important because Albertsons is Boise-based.
Yes.
But it would mean that over half of all of the money that Boiseans spend at grocery stores would go to one company.
Yeah.
If this merger went through, which is really bonkers to think about. And these companies keep saying, this will actually help us compete with Walmart and things like that. And everyone else is like, what are you talking about? Obviously, you're going to have so much control over prices that actually it's going to be really bad for consumers. So that's essentially what's going on. That court case is in Portland, so we're kind of keeping an eye on it here.
Absolutely. And yeah, it's been really interesting because there are such diametrically opposite narratives about what will happen if this merger goes through. And So what the FTC has said, and the different states that are siding with the FTC, is they're saying whenever these kind of mergers happen, number one, stores get closed because fewer stores, you can concentrate your customers where you want them, which means fewer jobs, so people will get fired. And if there's less competition, there's less reason for you to keep your prices lower. And so in a lot of cases, these prices will go up. And then places like Walmart will raise their prices. Costco will raise their prices because they don't have that competition to try to keep the prices lower, profit margins lower, to keep customers coming there. On the other hand, Albertsons and Kroger say, no, this will help keep prices lower. On August 16th, Kroger promised to double, so to do $1 billion in investment in lowering prices if the merger goes through. It's important to keep in mind this is a $25 billion merger deal. So there's a lot of money that could potentially come from this. But while at the same time that Kroger was saying that they would lower prices, the FTC has said that allegedly Albertsons executives were deleting text messages and text message threads where executives were saying that absolutely prices would go up with this merger, that with mergers, prices always go up. They would increase prices, and so they would make more profits. So you're getting these competing narratives, and I'm really interested to see what these lawsuits bring to light. I'm really interested in the discovery and what else comes to light about, they aren't just, let's be so for real. Businesses aren't making mergers because they're like, we just want to help people. This is about profits. This is about making money. And so that's important to keep in mind whenever they talk about what they are doing and why they're doing it. And just like you said, Blake, between Albertsons and Kroger, that is a huge amount of the grocery availability in the Treasure Valley. Like Albertsons got started here. There are so many Albertsons in this valley. And then we've got Smith's, we've got Fred Meyer. So we have all these stores in this area that would be impacted by this. And how would that affect grocery prices in the Treasure Valley, where cost of living has gone up so much in just the past couple of years and wages have not kept up?
Totally. And that's, one has mentioned three things going on in the background. One is what you just mentioned, of course, cost of living. Like you can't go to the grocery store without spending $40 to $60 now. You just get a basket and you're spending $40. It just like everything is just incredibly expensive. And I'm so tired of these big companies blaming this on we're raising prices because people are stealing through self-checkout. That's not why you're raising prices. You're making record profits. Two other things to keep in mind. One is this analysis by Boise Dev, which I mean, like you said, this merger has been covered, and the lawsuits against this merger have been covered from national outlet to national outlet. And Boise Dev is actually the only place where I've seen this reported, which is that the about $500 million price tag cuts that were promised earlier, which has been upped since, they kind of did this little analysis, which means that the savings on our grocery store trips would be between 1 and 2 cents per trip to the store if they made that promise, which is they're oh, don't worry, we would totally cut prices. It would amount to about that much. And then one other thing to keep in mind is that, of course, in the backdrop of all this, you don't get companies this big without some sort of tension. We'll call it tension with unions.
That's a good word.
And so actually right now, a bunch of Kroger, Fred Meyer stores in the Portland area, 28 Fred Meyers, about 4,000 employees, are on strike. So obviously really well timed for them to be going on strike while the FTC is leading this lawsuit in Portland. And they're, of course, talking about, unfair labor practices and all of those kinds of things, pension issues that they've ran into, and essentially saying we want Kroger to stand behind what they've said, and saying that they're so, solid on unions and so pro their workers. We want them to stand behind that. And they need to be able to show that they stand behind that before such a huge merger takes place, because another big concern with a merger like this is that then unions and employees lose even more bargaining power. So those are some important pieces of background information going on behind all of this. But of course, first of mind for everyone listening, and for me and you too, is just it's so expensive to go to the grocery store these days, and even Winco, it feels like. And we've seen it time and time again. Like you said, these mergers aren't happening for you and I so that we can save money. That's just not what's going on.
Yes. Well, and there was just a national story that broke yesterday that Kroger executives admitted that they had price gouged more than just inflation, which I think we all suspected that, but they are admitting that. So if they're admitting they already took advantage of the situation to get more money from you, I just personally have a hard time believing that if they, have a $25 billion merger go through, that they're going to keep our best interests at heart. That's not what they're doing. That's not what they've been doing. Why would they suddenly start?
And this is when they're supposed to be on their best behavior, right? They're supposed to be showing to the public and to consumers and to judges, we're on our best behavior right now because we want to show that we mean what we're saying about this merger. And if that's what they're saying while they're supposed to be on their best behavior, who knows what would happen if the merger would go through. So, I mean, I think it's pretty clear how you and I feel about the merger. But I think it's like you said, it can be really kind of discombobulating when you hear Kroger and Albertsons talk about this, because it's just how, it's how companies have trained themselves to talk and to the public and to consumers, and saying, we'll have your back, we'll support you, we've got this and that. But the lived reality of all of us and their employees speaks pretty loudly. So we will see. At least right now, it seems like the FTC has a lot of momentum against this merger. So we'll see what happens.
just, focusing back in on the Treasure Valley, Albertsons has announced that if the merger goes through, there will be 10 stores, 10 Albertsons supermarkets that will be sold. That's 6 in Boise, 1 in Meridian, and 1 in Nampa. And so it kind of remains to be seen. Are those the grocery stores near you? Are those the ones you use? And what would that mean for the Treasure Valley? I think there's a lot up in the air about if this merger goes through, what does that mean day to day for people who have to buy groceries? Okay, Blake. Well, jumping back to our very first conversation, all this smoke that everybody's seeing, at least on Thursday, maybe on Friday, it'll have been windy enough to blow it away. Fingers crossed. But let's really jump into what is going on and why is there suddenly all this smoke again?
Yeah, so a lot of people in the Boise area and just, I don't know, in the state of Idaho have been keeping their eyes on the Wapiti fire, which is near Grand Jean and, of course, Stanley, beloved background or backyard for a lot of Boiseans for a long time. Around Stanley Lake, especially. I mean, the Idaho Statesman actually just posted some photos on Wednesday of around the Stanley area and showing the smoke plumes, the flames in some places, and it's really sad. As someone who grew up going to Stanley and loves that place very dearly, it's scary to see this happening. I mean, it's a place that for a long time. Really, as far as I can remember, I remember being up there like with my dad and just other adults who like are familiar with fire ecology and just them saying like, this place is going to burn. And we've seen that happen 2 times so far this summer in the like Stanley and Sawtooth area of really big fires, taking out a lot of down timber, a lot of formerly diseased timber. And yeah, it's happening in a really notable and beloved place in Stanley, so in Grand Jean. So we just hope, I mean, there have been a number of residences lost, I believe 8, but this fire is exploding really quickly. Mm-hmm. Over last weekend, it jumped, it almost doubled in size to 70,000 acres. I wrote an update in the newsletter on Wednesday that it was up to 70,000. And just this morning, I looked and it's almost at 90,000 already.
Yikes. And is it still at 0% containment? Because
that's what it's looking like. Oof. Yeah. And, that number obviously will be updated really quickly. Every day, this fire is evolving really rapidly, and so that is where we're getting some of our smoke. There's also a few more smaller fires that have popped up in the Boise National Forest that might be where we're getting our smoke from. But yeah, the AQI index really jumped up really quickly. We're looking at like an unhealthy warning right now in the Treasure Valley, or at least some of the Treasure Valley. We've been, not out of sight, out of mind, of course. Like our minds are still with Stanley and the Wapiti fire. But so far in Boise, we've been pretty lucky that actually the smoke has been going the other direction. Like you're more likely to see the smoke in Yellowstone right now than you are in Boise up until this point. But this is one of the largest fires burning in North America right now. There's a really big one in California just north of Chico. But other than that, from what I could see, this is the largest fire burning in North America. But of course, with all of Canada, that can change anytime soon. So
yeah,
the West is certainly on fire, and Idaho is definitely part of that trend right now.
Yeah, I say, and last I saw, they had over 600 people.
I know,
working on this fire. That's quite a lot. It's a big crew. Yeah, that is a big crew, really working to fight this and get it contained. It's really important to note, like heading into the holiday weekend, that they have closed Idaho Highway 21 between Loman and Stanley, and that they also closed Highway 17. You might know that as the Banks-Loman Road, in both directions between Garden Valley and Loman. That was due to the Nellie fire, but it still is really, just please, if you're looking to travel, I know this holiday can be a really good time to get outdoors. Please be aware, please check and make sure that where you're trying to go is safe and not under an evacuation order. Please make sure the roads that you're using are open. I want everyone to be safe, and this is a time you do just have to be aware and thoughtful. Please be mindful about your vacation plans. And then yeah, it was really a shame that such a beloved area is in just I'm just experiencing this right now. Yeah, my heart goes out to the people in that area, and it's hard to see a beloved place from childhood and from family vacations just be experiencing this. Okay, those were some pretty heavy stories. So I definitely want to wrap up with our picks of the week. Let's head into the weekend with feeling a little better about things.
Some positivity.
Some positivity going into the weekend. There's so much that's up in the air. And so for my pick of the week, would like to do The Spirit of Boise.
Yeah.
Yes, I was trying to go for a pun there. If you're unfamiliar, it is the hot air balloons. They do it every year, and pilots come from all over the country, all kinds of different balloons. And it's actually already started. It started on Wednesday, but Friday, the 30th, there is a night glow spectacular. And that usually the rest of the days of kind of the festival or the hot air balloon show, most things happen very early in the morning. So if you are not an early bird, if you're not trying to get out there first thing in the morning, this is your chance to see some really, really spectacular hot air balloons in the evening. And then if you aren't able to make it for the show on August 30th, they will have Saturday morning at 7:20. They're going to be there right first thing in the morning, 7:20 a.m. And then September 1st is the last launch, and the inflation of the balloons begins at 6 a.m. and then they take flight around 7:20.
I think one of my favorite parts about it is that like in the mornings you do get to be part of this, even if you don't actually go to Ann Morrison, because you can just like be going about your day, like running errands. And you can't tell me that you don't feel better when you see a hot air balloon in the sky. I remember a few years ago, I had a baking shift before a 9 a.m. class at Boise State. So I like had to go to work at like 3:30 in the morning. So I'm just dragging my feet. I go to work, go back home, and drive to Boise State, and just like I'm dead on my feet. I'm so tired and trying to go to class, and just like was driving on Chinden actually, and the shadow passed over me, and I like jumped because I'm caffeinated out of my mind and so jittery, and I look up and there's Yoda just like floating along above me, and I was just like, oh, I'm tripping. Like, I'm losing my mind because I just forgot that, like, the Spirit of Boise was happening that weekend.
No, Blake, I had a really similar experience last year. I was still working as a nurse. And so I had completely forgotten that it was the week of Spirit of Boise. And I was driving in on the connector. And all of a sudden, you kind of turn that curve near Ann Morrison Park. And there's just all of these hot air balloons. And it's beautiful. Like you said, it's magical. Also, like, a little dangerous because I'm trying to focus on driving. I think all of us, you hit that spot and we're like, balloons.
Especially with the smoke right now, it has full moon vibes. Like, I feel like a cat losing my mind. Yeah.
It is. I was like, focus, Lindsay. You've got to drive. You're driving on the connector. This is kind of dangerous. This is where like the wrecks happen. Like, focus. But you're like, oh my gosh, balloons. Like, it was, and it really just brightened my whole day. So I think it's just, there's so much here that can be hard. I do love Spirit of Boise. I think that is one thing that is just really fun that we do.
It's so fun. Okay, my pick of the week is actually 2 weeks out. It's also on a Friday. Idaho is going to have its first ever trans march.
Woo!
Which is pretty remarkable. I'm really stoked about it. I'm going to be interviewing one of the organizers for the Hey Boise newsletter next week, so keep an eye out for that. The whole idea behind it is that they are so focused on trans joy. It can be really difficult to be trans in Idaho and in Boise. People love to talk about little blue bubble in Boise. Y'all, it is not easy out here to be trans. And but it is also a really joyful experience. Like, there's the community and the camaraderie that you can find is really, it can be hard to get into sometimes. I'm not saying it's not cliquey sometimes, but I think that there is magic and joy in being trans, and I'm so excited that this is getting featured in a prominent way. allies, you are more than welcome. This would be a great way to show out your support. This is on September the 13th, Friday evening, right before the whole weekend. Then after that is Pride, but this is like separate from official Boise Pride weekend. But just having this space set aside specifically for trans folks and shining a light not just on the hardships of being trans, but on the connectivity that can come from it. And we all have a lot to learn from our own journeys with our genders, cis people included. And we all have a lot to learn and have already learned a lot from trans people, whether you know it or not. We contribute a lot to culture, and you may not even know about that. So I really hope that you can go out, show some gratitude, show some support. Again, like I said, you are more than welcome, because as part of the community myself, it means so much when people actually go out and physically put themselves, out on the street for something like this. And so I'm really excited to learn more about this march. I hope that you'll learn more about it with me as I interview one of the organizers and share more as we learn more. But I just wanted to put that on people's radars for 2 weeks out on September 13th. I'm really excited for it.
Perfect. Is there a location or time yet, or is that to be determined?
Yeah, so it starts at 8th and Jefferson. That's like the gathering place. And then the actual march is towards the Anne Frank Memorial. So also a great place to, a great location in downtown Boise to involve in this. And then the rest of the march takes all the way to the Boise Pride Festival in front of the Capitol. So I think that it's the perfect way to kick off Boise Pride. I mean, a lot of the people who I'm sure listen to this podcast have heard us talking about anti-trans legislation and all of those kinds of things that have been going on. So it's important to root into this leading into the rest of Pride, I think.
Well, thank you so much, Blake. Thanks for joining me this week.
Yeah, happy Labor Day weekend.
That's all for today here on CityCast Boise. The show is produced by Evelyn Avitia, Frankie Barnhill, Lizzie Goldsmith, and me, Lindsay Van Allen. Blake Hunter writes our Hey Boise newsletter, and our music is by Up Is the Down Is the. If you enjoyed our show today, leave us a review. It helps other people find us. We'll be back on Tuesday with another great local story. I hope you all enjoy your Labor Day weekend.